Hey, book lovers. Welcome to While I Read with Katie Dodrell. So, I've had so many books come out this summer that I've been excited to read. Today, I'm going to be talking with you about 5 books that I read recently. 4 of them are mystery or thrillers, and one is a cozy mystery. These are all books that have been published in the last couple of months. So, let's get started. First, let's talk about The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, which was one of my most anticipated books for the month of June. The Midnight Feast is about a luxury resort called the Manor, which is owned by a very rich woman named Francesca, who has created this fantasy land where rich guests can stay in luxurious cabins in the woods, swim in an infinity pool, visit a dreamy spa, and just do all kinds of things to help them relax in this beautiful, peaceful setting. But the people who live near the manor in this small village in England are not happy about it. Centuries old trees are being cut down. A public walking path and beach is now private property only for the guest of the manor. And locals don't seem to be welcome there. It's just for the rich and privileged. So, this book takes place during the opening weekend of the manor, which takes place during the summer solstice. And that was pretty cool because I was reading it during the summer solstice, which made it even better. The narrative is told in several different time periods. We've got the opening weekend of the manor during the summer solstice. Then we also have the day after the solstice, following a detective who's investigating a death and a fire that happened during that opening weekend. And then we also have a timeline in 2010, following some events that happened then that are affecting what's happening now. Lucy Foley is the master of multiple point of view books, and this one is no exception. So, for our point of view characters, we've got Francesca, who is the rich, beautiful, privileged owner of the manor. We get chapters following Owen, who is Francesca's husband and the architect who designed the manor. We've also got a mystery guest named Bella, who has a history with Francesca that's revealed throughout the book. Some chapters follow Eddie, who is kitchen help at the manor and lives at a local farm. And then some chapters follow the detective who is investigating what happened at the manor during its opening weekend. I love how Lucy Foley describes what's happening at the manor and how she brings all of these different viewpoints together to tell the story. It's a really good, complex story. It has great descriptions of this beautiful place for the rich and privileged, where everyone has secrets beneath the surface. The book was a little slow in parts, but overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a great summer read. Next, I want to talk about A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. A Talent for Murder is the 3rd book in the Lily Kentner and Henry Kimball series, but I read it first. It's about a librarian named Martha who starts to suspect that her husband is a murderer. He seems like a nice guy. He seems to be in love with her, but she didn't know him that well before they got married. He's a salesman who travels a lot for work, and after one of his trips, Martha finds blood on his shirt. So she starts doing a little research, and she finds that every time her husband visits a city, a woman ends up murdered in that city. Now, of course, he's visiting large cities where it's natural that a lot of crime will take place, but Martha just can't get the idea out of her head that he might be the one who's committing these crimes. So she can't decide exactly what she needs to do. She doesn't want to confront him about it. She doesn't really want to go to the police about it. She finally decides to contact an old friend of hers from graduate school named Lily Kentner. Back when they were in graduate school, Martha had gotten involved with an abusive boyfriend, and Lily helped her get out of that situation. So even though Martha and Lily haven't really kept in touch, she knows that Lily is someone that she can trust. So she contacts Lily. Lily follows Martha's husband and discovers some crazy things about the murders that have been taking place. This book is much darker than what I usually read, but I did really enjoy it. Lily is basically a vigilante, which is not something that I generally enjoy, but she is the most interesting vigilante that I have ever encountered in fiction. I mean, she's a librarian, so there's that. I definitely recommend this book and the entire series, which has 3 books. If you're a normal person, you can read them in order, but I did just fine reading the 3rd book first. This 3rd one was my favorite of the series. Next, let's talk about In the Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. In the Middle of the Night just came out in June, and it's set in July, so it was another perfect summer read. It's about a man named Ethan who's in his 40s and has just come back to his hometown, a little suburb on a street called Hemlock Circle. And when Ethan was young, when he was 10, he had a really traumatic experience there at his home. His best friend Billy was spending the night with him, and they were camping outside in Ethan's backyard. When Ethan woke up the next morning, there was a hole sliced in his tent, and Billy was gone. Ethan didn't remember anything about what happened. Billy was never found. So, of course, that affected Ethan throughout his life. So, as the book starts, he's come back to Hemlock Circle. Ethan starts reconnecting with some of his old friends from his childhood. Some things come to light about Billy and about that night 30 years before. And then some strange things start to happen to Ethan where he thinks that they have something to do with Billy and with Billy's death. The book goes back and forth between present day, when Billy's trying to figure out what happened and what's going on now, and 1994, during the time right before Billy disappeared. The chapters from 1994 were a lot of fun for me to read. They had so many pop culture references from the 90s, like the movie The Lion King is part of the plot. It's mentioned several times that the summer that Billy disappeared was the same summer of the white Bronco chase with O.J. Simpson, which everybody who was alive during that time remembers. So I just loved the 90s nostalgia. This book is fun and creepy, and I definitely recommend it as a good summer read. Next, let's talk about Pitch Dark by Paul Doirun. Pitch Dark is the 15th book in the Mike Bowditch series. Mike Bowditch is a game warden in Maine, and in this book, he's investigating a man named Mark Redmond who lives deep in the wilderness with a 12-year-old daughter named Katie. Mike is concerned when he learns that Redmond homeschools his daughter, that she rarely leaves their isolated camp deep in the Maine wilderness. She's never seen in public, so Mike decides that he needs to investigate this. So the camp where they live is very difficult to get to. Mike ends up being flown in by a pilot named Josie. Mike's father-in-law, Charlie, is along for the ride. And if you've read this series, you know Charlie is a great character. Mike discovers that both Mark Redmond and his daughter Katie have some very dark secrets, and he ends up in a cat and mouse game in the wilderness. The book is exciting and suspenseful. It takes place in an isolated, rugged location cut off by a storm. And as always in the Mike Bowditch books, nature plays a huge role. This book is a great addition to the series. If you haven't read the other books in the series, you could easily start with this one, but if you do, you'll probably want to go back and read the other books. This was a great story. Next, let's talk about the cozy mystery, The Perils of Lady Catherine de Bourgh by Claudia Gray. This is the third book in the Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney series. The Mr. Darcy in the book is Jonathan Darcy, son of George and Elizabeth Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, and Miss Tilney is Juliet Tilney, daughter of Catherine and Henry Tilney from Northanger Abbey. Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney solve mysteries together, and they've become somewhat well known for their investigative abilities. In this book, Jonathan's aunt, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, calls them to her home at Rosings Park because there have been some attempts at her life, and she wants them to figure out who is trying to murder her. I really love these books because they feature some of our favorite characters from Jane Austen. If you remember in Pride and Prejudice, Lady Catherine de Bourgh is a great character, very mean but also very funny. We also meet some other characters from Pride and Prejudice in this book, including Mr. Collins and his wife Charlotte, and this continues their story. I really love the characters of Mr. Darcy and Miss Tilney. Jonathan Darcy is considered strange during the time period. To the modern reader, it's obvious that he's neurodivergent. He has trouble meeting people's eyes. He doesn't like being in large crowds. He gets upset when he's out of his routine. But of course, during that time period in Regency England, people just thought that he was strange. So it's interesting to read the books and see how he figures out how to navigate life, and also how his relationship with Juliet builds, as she's one of the few people who accepts him and likes him just as he is. Juliet is a great heroine. She's a proper young woman with Regency sensibilities, but she also likes to investigate murder, which is not always considered proper. I love how the books don't try to make her a modern woman transferred to Regency England, but rather show how a young woman in this time period might reasonably do some unusual things, but still be considered respectable. The books are written very much in the style of Jane Austen, which I love. For Jane Austen fans, these are great books. If you're not a Jane Austen fan, I don't know how much you'll enjoy it, but they are really good, fun mysteries. I definitely recommend this book and this whole cozy mystery series. Like I said, this is the third in the series. Again, you could probably start this one without reading the others in the series, but this one will make you want to go back and read the other books in the series. So there you have it, 5 new releases that I've read this summer. I would recommend all of these books, so if you're looking for something new to read, definitely pick up one of these books. Have you already read one of these? What have you been reading this summer? Tell me about it in the comments. If you like this video and want more book recommendations and reviews, please subscribe to my channel. Now, go eat some peaches while I read.